Dr. Pieczenik here out of the gates, and I hope he'll cover this first. I don't know his view yet. His website's Pieczenik.com. Obviously find his nonfiction and fiction books there. But I don't know his view on this yet. You look at what happened with Scalia. You look at how they wrote a script here with a pillow on his head, but don't worry, no foul play. And we're not going to have an autopsy written to make people think something happened. I was the first to question it. Now they've got all these top police detectives, the head of the detectives operation in New York, D.C., all these top forensics people are on CBS News going, no, this stinks to high heaven. The default's an autopsy. I know Dr. Pieczenik's been involved in autopsies. He understands law. And, of course, he's also been a covert operations commander in combat as well and secret operations. So he can speak to this on every angle. So if he disagrees with me that I think there's some hanky-panky, that's fine, because I really respect his opinion. I don't know it yet. Dr. Pieczenik, thank you. What do you really think's going on here?
Well, Alex, it's a pleasure to be on the audience, on your show again. Honestly, I think Scalia's death has more relevance to what you and your great audience and Trump has been doing to than the actual death of Scalia. And let me explain it. We have had, since you and I have had a 14 or 15-year relationship, we have been attacked, not only you, but I, repeatedly as truthers, conspiracy. That is the way the establishment, and as you call it, the decaying media, has been putting us in the corner. What we're dealing with is far greater than Scalia. You hit it right on the head now. Whether he was killed or was not killed is irrelevant to the following issue. We, the American people, no longer trust Obama, no longer trust the Bushes, no longer trust the Clintons. That's a statement of fact. The statement of revolution has been that we have not allowed ourselves to be cowed by individuals or by groups. In your case, you've remained on the air, and I've been very proud of you, and I've been very proud of the audience. In my case, they try to shut me up with subpoenas and other operations that I understood and were able to avert. The real issue at hand, Scalia may be the flashpoint, but we are now entering the heat of battle. And the battle basically is a revolutionary battle where Trump correctly is saying the things that you have said, the audience has said, and we have talked about. Every time Trump talks about 9/11, it's a coded message to warn the Bushes that you are on trial. It's not simply that I happen to know, as Trump says, the people who own the building, but I happen to know who did it as well. Trump is exceedingly bright. He's exceedingly incisive. I could not have predicted 5 years ago, even a year ago, that Trump would have come to the forefront. But thanks to Roger Stone, to Corey Lentowski and others from the Tea Party and other parties, they've come forward and picked the right man who was not beholden to anybody. So what are we really talking about when Scalia is dead? The attention focuses to the Clintons, correctly. Why? Because Hillary Clinton has a history of lying, distortion, killing, and assassination, as does Bill. Despite the fact that both of them are cowardly, both of them are inept, and I happen to know for a fact, and they have a lovely daughter. The truth of the matter is, Michael Flynn, the former Director General, the former Lieutenant General of the
Defense Intelligence
Agency, stated very clearly to Hillary Clinton on Fox Network and everywhere else, and I wrote a blog, Michael Flynn, who's the extremely highly regarded intelligence operative under McChrystal, said repeatedly, Hillary Clinton should stop the campaign. She has violated the security.
And he said we were ordered to create ISIS and give them power to take over Syria. He said that on Al Jazeera and on Fox, which to me signaled a rebellion within the military, a soft Valkyrie. And so this is all about pushing a referendum of, we don't trust you, you're illegitimate, we don't buy anything you're selling. Even if you say that that the moon is made out of rock, we don't believe it because you said it.
Correct, Alex. So let me put it in another way. We've said it for a long time, and sometimes you had to quiet me down. But for years, I've said we've had a military a military that went to war and combat, rightfully or wrongfully, who's come back and said enough is enough, and we will perform what is called a soft coup. We saw it with Dempsey a couple of months ago when I spoke on your show, and when Dempsey basically said, I can't trust my own generals, I don't trust the White House, which he's correct. Because
hold on, you and Colonel Schaefer and others said 2+ years ago that he had gone to the White House and said, the military's not backing you openly bombing Syria. No, we're going to help the Russians. That was a soft coup right there. That came out, as you know, with Cy Hirsch and is now confirmed. That is sensationally good news.
Exactly. Now, on top of that, for me to tell you that Michael Flynn, the Defense Intelligence Agency, I can't tell you, in my world, more important than Scalia is Michael Flynn. Why? Because he and James Clapper, and I can't invoke Clapper, but Clapper's a good man who's Director of National Intelligence, that both of them really oversee 15 of our intelligence units in the military, not only civilian, but in the military. And he has warned her, and he has basically informed the American public to resist in the best way possible, which is to deny the election to the Bushes, deny the election to the Clintons, and deny them to anyone else, except for the man who can speak the loudest and can say what he has to say. Whether Trump knows the details of force structures or conventional systems, or he knows the intelligence, it's not as relevant to me.
And here's the big news I want to give people. You knew what was going on.
Correct.
The day after I had Stone on, you basically on air repeated the conversation I had with him in there, and you hadn't even talked to him. You just know who he is. And they basically telegraphed to me that, hey, Trump's on board. He knows what's going on. We're going to set him up on your show if they go after him for 9/11 Truth. But they were smart enough to not do it. So it shows that there are large cadres in the government that have actually recruited Trump, and that Trump had to spend weeks thinking about it a year ago plus, and literally thinking about how he might have to face his death. So whatever you want to say about Trump, he is making a run at him, and they are really concerned.
This is it, and without being an exaggeration, this is the equivalent of the new American Revolution. You and I have waited for 14 years since 9/11. What Trump did on the past weekend and attacked George Bush Jr. was right on the mark.
Scared the hell out of them.
Very clearly.
They're scared.
They're scared. And what you're seeing now is the desperation of what happened in the French Revolution. The kings and queens, their heads are going to be cut off. And Hillary, her head is going to be cut off. In the case of Bush Jr., his head is going to be cut off. That's metaphorically speaking. As long as the American public thrusts forward and keeps up that momentum, basically what they're saying is that the Republican establishment is finished, which it is, because I can't believe McCain and a whole bunch of those old farts really represent anything other than their own vested interest. And when you see, what's her name, the Graham Lindsay, Miss Lindsay talking, even though he's been in combat, he's been in the military, I give him credit, he's not relevant. And what Trump is doing...
Stay there. We got to go to break, Dr. Pieczenik. But I want to come back and ask, how will the globalists strike back? Because you know, is it a false flag, a war? How are they going to strike back? In the late 80s, the Soviet Union began to fall when Romania fell. Ceausescu. He seemed to be invincible. But over time, he basically had about a 95% unfavorable rating. That's what Congress has, is about a 91%, 92% negative. The average U.S. citizen sees the, quote, federal government as the #1 threat. And now they have black sedans that go to my guest houses and basically threaten them. We get threatened. That doesn't intimidate everybody. And historically, you may intimidate 90% of people. The other 10% is going to defeat you because we're in the right. And the average person in the federal government isn't our enemy either. It's the criminals that have hijacked it. And Dr. Pieczenik's with us till about 40 after. I really appreciate him coming on. Then we'll get into other really important breaking world news and information. But I'm not bragging when I do a Facebook mentions Saturday night at 8 o'clock at night and just say, watch them not do an autopsy, watch them do this and that. From the way they announced it, it looks suspicious. This isn't standard. They're ignoring all the defaults. And then now there's 19,000 articles today with my name in it worldwide attacking me. But police and everybody are coming out, and Michael Savage is coming out, and Donald Trump's coming out and saying, no, it does look suspicious. And the more they change their story, the worse it looks. That's a referendum on how discredited they are. But listen, I don't enjoy the power trip of being the guy willing to do this. I want to see him defeated. I want to see more people jump in first ahead of me, because it is dangerous. And I'm willing to die. But I'll tell you this, I don't tempt the fates. I don't flirt with it. I'm not macho. I'm not looking for it. I have a duty, and I'm going to do it. But I tell you this, folks, now every week we're changing the narrative and hurting them, and it's making them mad. We've interviewed Hillary and run into her and Jeb and everybody. I know I'm ranting, Dr. Pieczenik. I'm kind of asking you as a really smart mentor from the inside what you think. I could feel in my gut the danger and the creepiness that when they see InfoWars now as a reporter, they get an adrenaline rush. They stand up like a cat getting electrocuted, and their people all freak out with fear when they hear my name or see our flag on a microphone. So I know these are dangerous killers. These are mafia dons. And it doesn't scare me, but it's bracing and nauseating to see them react in fear of my name or my symbols. What do you say to that, sir?
Well, I think it's a tribute to you and your millions of people in the audience around the world to know that we all believe in an alternative narrative, which is not given by the standard media or the presidency. Basically, what you're involved in now, and I say it in terms of the intelligence operative that I was or am, you're involved in agitation propaganda. What we're doing now on your part, and what you have done effectively, is to basically agitate the entire structure of not one administration, but 3 administrations spanning over 30 years. At the same time, because of your vocal opinion, and I'm not talking, to flaunt you or laud you, but you have done a remarkable job of taking the information that we now know on the internet, and the people who come along with us, the military men who fought in Iraq and Afghanistan, who understood that the biggest lie that was given to them was by a coward who avoided the draft named George W. Bush Jr., and another coward who avoided the draft 11 times named Cheney, all of whom can pronounce big words and send everyone to war except themselves or their brothers. Neither Neil, Marvin, Jeb, or George, all cowards. Not maybe cowards, but cowards, outright cowards and disgusting individuals.
And it's one thing if they dodge the draft, but then to be warmongers on top of it later.
That's the way to cover up the fact that they're cowards. So those who send us to war and never been to war, we will have to deny. And this is where the Iraqi and Afghanistan veterans, the brave warriors who went forth, the men and women, to stand up and say, we've had enough. You want to go to war, Mr. Cruz? You go to Canada and join up and go with the military. You want to go to war, Mr. Rubio? You've never been to war, but you've certainly been, your brother-in-law has certainly been in the cocaine wars in Miami. So what's happening is a lot of the issues of truth are coming forth. Will they assassinate you? No, I can guarantee you that. And the reason is very simple. Whoever they is, number one, not interested in assassinating you or anybody else. And number two, there is an inability within the structure to have assassinations committed without outsourcing. Let me be very clear. The people who usually did the dirty work in the JFK assassination came out of Texas. I don't want to go into their names, but many of the presidents were involved. Senior Bush, Nixon, and others were involved in the assassination of Kennedy. He should never have been president. He had Addison's disease.
Stay there. This is amazing info. Stay right there. I mean, we know it was exactly who you mentioned in LBJ, and we have the deathbed confession of E. Howard Hunt, which we premiered here. We'll be back. A big event.
We're on the march.
I was a backbencher on the big event. Steve Pieczenik's our guest, and I appreciate him coming on about the Scalia situation. And I just love his answer because he just crystallized it all in 1 minute, what I've been babbling about for 4 days. And that is, it doesn't matter whether they killed him or not. No one believes anything they say. They've got polls out there where over 80% of Americans don't believe it. Almost all the comments don't believe it. And their response in the news is just to make stuff up and say that I said Obama strangled him and killed Leonard Nimoy. I said we should investigate this. There should be an autopsy. And I don't want to make it about myself, but I want to understand this because I'm just a guy, and again, what I've done as a model, obviously, and what Dr. Pieczenik's done as a model, and I'm trying to understand this myself because it's so surreal. And Dr. Pieczenik was on just a month ago saying, basically, the liberty movement, which you became a spokesman of, is like rock and roll. It's like a new cultural wave that can't be stopped. And I'm just part of the branding organically of people not buying into the system anymore. So I'm just one figurehead. And that's great because, believe me, I don't like messing with all these dangerous people all day. I mean, I'll do what I have to do, but I really want to just see America made great again. I want to reverse this downward slide. I don't think there's going to be some type of utopia coming, but whenever I've been around recently retired generals or former special forces colonels or current Delta Force people, you name it, some of them have been here in studio, others, you know, have been on the show, they'll actually ask me, hey, really, what intelligence agency are you with? What class are you? You know, did you get sheep dipped out of high school? Because a lot of people get recruited out of high school in these agencies. And I'm like, no, I've never been part of any agency, any group, nothing. 2 years at community college. I was about to go to UT for RTF. They were teaching 10-year-old information. I went and did an access show, got a local radio show, got into radio sales. I'm nothing. Half the time it's unlistenable. It's that nobody else was organic and did this. And I'm just sick of like high-level state people come over to my table in downtown Austin and ask me what agency I'm with. Police chiefs think I'm in some secret agency. Military people think I'm some secret guy. And I'm just an organic American and a Texan that has been defending the Bill of Rights and Constitution. And it's like people can't believe there'd be someone that could be successful, as if you've got to be in some, like, you know, they hand all these little intelligence agency names and all this stuff. It's like Pieczenik says, he's back in the old days of HUMAT, where they were actually out there doing stuff. Now it's just endless agencies and titles and, you know, guys speaking in their arm things with, you know, glasses, pulling up, trying to intimidate me. I just laugh at them. It's like they've gone from being real men to pretending to be real men, and then the real men in the military and everywhere else see that they're a joke, and it's just a disaster. But I don't mean to rant, sir. I want to get into Russia and the Saudi Arabia situation, the election, where you think it's going, and the time we have left. But how do I respond to these other government people thinking I must be part of some branch of a government? And then at another level, I do have branches of different agencies actually trying to couple with what we're doing to resist the globalist. And I'm not working with some agency, you know, in an official capacity. I don't sit there and get orders. It doesn't work like that. It's just people that also want to resist this. It's like V for Vendetta, where everybody doesn't have to get orders. They all just show up at the same time. Do you get what I'm saying, sir?
You hit it right on the head. What's different now and why the organizations and the government cannot function anymore is the fact that the Internet was used. When I first learned about it in 1973, when I was studying at MIT, we learned the Internet and social media. So imagine that. That was 73. That was funded by DARPA and the CIA. 30, 40 years later, the difference is that we, the people, are now using the Internet to undermine the credibility of the government. So no matter what Obama says, he's not relevant. He gave a lecture last night as to why Trump could not be the president of the United States. It's absurd that a man like him, who had no skills whatsoever, none, had never accomplished anything in the world, was reduced to the fact that he's giving a lecture as if he were a professor, when in fact he was nothing. He's just a CIA little operative who they pumped right up to the system, and he got in through lying, cheating in the Chicago Mill. So what's happening is you just keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about it. Keep uncovering what you consider to be the truth and what we know to be the truth. Will there be another false flag? Probably. There are only so many things this government is able to do, and believe me, they're getting less and less effective. More importantly is that the government is going off on its own. It doesn't really care what the American people says. The president can make all kinds of treaties which have very little relevance to us.
TPP, it's never been more obvious. It's just a breakaway rogue government.
Well, you know, we allowed it to happen. we gave funding to a bunch of people who are called legislators who sit there, do nothing really most of the time. They spend most of their time, the senators and congressmen, just going through process and going on junkets, and they're not relevant to us. In the 21st century, believe me, they're not relevant. And in fact, there's a real issue now as to whether a president is relevant. In my opinion, not.
Well, you always talk about how incompetent their information warfare is based on lies. I mean,
totally. I'm sorry.
Their counterpoints are all written scripts of the stupidest stuff that I would write to discredit myself if I was doing that. I mean, they're just so sophomoric.
Well, here's the point. The point is very simple. They're not functional. They forget, or they don't want to mention that Hillary Clinton, Obama, Samantha Power, Susan Rice created the disaster they had in Libya. Now what are they saying? Oh, we can correct that disaster. Instead of just attacking Libya, we'll attack it again in order to form a new government. That was exactly the same stupid reasoning that occurred in the Iraq situation, that occurred in Afghanistan, and Yemen and Sudan. So you have a repetition of stupidity, which has to stop. And the American public has to say, you know what, we're not going overseas. In a way, I had wished we had the draft, because the most important deterrent to going overseas or going to an unnecessary battles are the mothers who go out into the streets and say, no, I'm not going to sacrifice my son. You didn't see Bush sacrifice any of his sons. You didn't see Clinton sacrifice.
What is the social engineering about trying to put women in frontline combat?
Well, what they're doing is giving, basically, they're trying to do what the Israeli model is to integrate women into the social system and be responsive to the legal imperatives of having women do equal duty. Whether they can or not, quite frankly, I don't know. I do know that women in the intelligence service, particularly in human, are extremely good. In many ways, I find them overall to be somewhat superior to the men. But that's in my business, in human and other elements of intelligence, because they're far more sophisticated in absorbing a span of contradictions and simultaneous problems as opposed to men. But that's my prejudice. The reality is we're feminizing our army. We don't have an army. We have 2.2 million people, but our teeth-to-tail ratio, that means the people who actually fight compared to the support group, is so small. We maybe have 15 or 20,000 who can fight at most. We have 4,000 going into Djibouti in Cote d'Ivoire, which gets sent around all of AFRICOM. Do we really belong in AFRICOM? No. Do we really belong in Iraq or in Afghanistan?
Well, that was my next question. What is, in your expert view, Dr. Steve Pieczenik's our guest, stevepieczenik.com, what is the state of the world geopolitical and military situation right now? Talk of this leading into major world wars, Medvedev, the Russian Prime Minister?
Not really. No, what I'm looking at is a far more serious problem than major wars of combat. What I'm looking at is the fact that China, not purposely, but China inadvertently is going down the tubes very quickly financially. President Xi Jinping is not capable of handling the fundamental problem, which is structural in China, and that they have to transform from an export to a consumer economy where the people are getting paid more and there's no more slave labor like they have in Vietnam. So the president is losing, Xi Jinping is losing an immense amount of dollars or yuans, and it's devaluating very quickly, which will create a deflationary spiral all over the world. On the other side, I have Russia having the same problem. Oil has dropped down, our sanctions have been effective, and the ruble has gone down immensely. So the real war that's going on is not with bullets.
It's economic.
It's not even in Syria. It's economic. And fortunately for the geniuses in 1944, on December 27th, who created the Bretton Woods Conference, we Americans are fortunate because they forced the entire world to get denominated against the dollar, not against the yuan.
And this is the problem. We have the corrupt, decadent, delusional elite, stolen valor, Hillary Clinton, like Brian Williams, lying about all our combat, in Serbia and the rest of it, this ridiculous garbage, or Bosnia. And they've now inherited all of this American century, all the American ingenuity, all the American master planning, and even inheriting the British Empire. And they're just sitting on top of it, ruining our name, bankrupting us. Still people inside the American empire running it. but it's falling apart as a bunch of Neros, you know, run around on top of it taking 4-month vacations. So where do you see that going as that very elite imbibes in leftist ideology and wants to mop up the libertarian movement in America, thus killing the golden goose? I mean, I really see them really wanting to crush an American Renaissance when that American Renaissance is their only hope.
Well, the reality is whether the wealthy just lost about 25 to 30% of their net worth in the past 6 to 8 weeks. China lost in the past 6 to 8 weeks $10 trillion worth of yuan in their economy. So what's going to happen on this economic warfare is as we have deflation and the value of assets start going down, and we have a Federal Reserve that really doesn't know what it's doing. Yellen has no idea when to increase the rate and when to decrease it. We're going to be handed a double situation, deflation and possible inflation, yes, and that's stagflation. So the real war that we have is an economic war, not against China, not even against Russia, but internally. We have to start manufacturing. We have to stop allowing our government, our industries to go to Mexico and Vietnam.
Selling them off.
Trump is correct. That's correct.
Treason.
The hedge funds have to be disbanded. There's no reason why we have big banks.
What about China trying to buy the Chicago Mercantile Exchange? I mean, that sounds like they just want to buy off all that fraud to prop themselves up.
Well, they can try to buy anything they want, but the truth of the matter is, like Japan went around 20 years ago buying up everything we had, they then lost it because China cannot sustain a drainage over $10 trillion. Their Federal Reserves and their currency reserves are in the billions, and they're losing it. They have to maintain a liquidity that they can't manage. In short, what I'm saying to the audience is America is still very powerful. It doesn't matter if I got Mickey Mouse there, Donald Duck, or Obama. The truth of the matter is the infrastructure where I have the governors and the commissioners on a much more local level functioning, and the American individual is really creating his or her own in business and having the cash flows they need, we will still sustain our greatness. As for the people on top, they're not going to be as relevant. If you think that a Scalia was that important, not really. The only one who really damaged the whole system was Roberts, when he created the notion that a company is an individual and therefore you could have as much money as you wanted to. Trump is stopping that. He's basically saying, look, I'm a billionaire. I don't need the money. I don't care about the favors. I don't need to have...
Well, as you said, we have to have the Henry Ford idea, and he was a bad guy in some ways but good in others, that your employees have got enough money to buy your product. There's got to be an economy. They just can't game it, suck it all dry. They're going to live in giant palaces surrounded by ghettos. We really don't want to go this third world model that they're trying to sell, that it's so great to be austere and all this garbage. As soon as your new book comes out, Dr. Pieczenik, I want to have you on. Give us a sneak peek.
Thank you.
In the next 60 seconds about your new book. Folks can find out about it.
Well, it's called Theodora. It's about a woman who was brave enough to leave France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, and come to the United States because she loved her sons and she loved America. She loved it so much, I called it Theodora. That was my mother. So it's an interesting book. It's a book about what happens when you have the need for survival and the need for love. That's it. Love and survival are the only two things that count in this country and in this world. She loved America, and America loved her. And that's why I end this talk with you. We're a great country. We shouldn't give up. We shouldn't stop our protests, and you should not stop your discussions on what's happening. The truth of the matter is we're hurting them very badly, and what you're seeing is a frightened animal on all sides, on Obama, on the Bushes, and the Clinton, because this is the last gasp they have before they go down, and they know it. So they're going to hit a lot more, and if we keep Trump up there, and ironically, Sanders, who's a social democrat, he's pulling all the votes away from Hillary. It's become a paradox of irony.
Well, Dr. Pieczenik, I thought the book was coming out. Is it out yet?
It is out, yeah. It'll come out, and you'll have a site there where it can be bought.
Absolutely. Well, StevePieczenik.com has the link to it. I guess it's pre-orders now. But right. I want to get you on as soon as it comes out to really talk about your mom and your interesting life. I mean, I guess out of Russia into Europe, then into Cuba, then into the United States, and I know a lot of what you've been.
That's what it is.
A lot of what you've been involved in has been classified. But And, of course, we talk about some of it, then you get the Justice Department subpoenaing you. But I tell you, just amazing life you've had so far. And I don't know how much of it you can get into here on the air.
Let me tell you, I love the FBI, and they take care of me. But truthfully, they have to hand me the subpoenas that are ordered from the Department of Justice and the State Department. That's part of the give and take, my friend. And they're going to harass you, they're going to harass me, and they'll harass many others. But as long as we believe in this country, and as long as we believe the ability to protest, we'll do okay. No one will touch you. Trust me, Alex. They're smart enough to understand the best thing they could do is to leave you alone, to leave me alone.
Well, I know this. Anywhere I go now, when crazies come after me, police just pop out of the woodwork and stop them. I actually have the police and feds actually like hovering around. One group of them watching me to protect me, and then there's these other groups. I tell you, I never knew I'd get into like a James Bond lifestyle doing this, Doc. It's crazy.
Well, you are, and welcome to that world. You're in an agitation propaganda world, and welcome to it. You might as well enjoy it and tell your people to enjoy it. This is what it's about. You agitate until you get what you want, and they agitate back. Whoever continues to agitate wins. That's the name of the game.
Resistance is victory. Pieczenik.com. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, audience. God bless.
Theodora was a woman who used her charm, her diamonds, and her intellect to escape the horrors of war. She wiled her way through Europe, and in the port of Lisbon, she boarded a ship that took her to a new life in America, by way of Cuba. During her journey, she fell in love, divorced, married, and bore 2 sons. Theodora survived against the odds and made a home for herself and her family in the country she loved, America.
Take the voyage with Theodora in the new novel by best-selling author Steve Pieczenik.